Mark Wilson found himself seated, deep in thought, replaying the whirlwind events of the past 12 hours. His wedding day, anticipated to be one of the happiest moments of his life, had started as a dream but spiraled into a complex mix of highs and lows. After exchanging vows with Jen Saylor Wilson, the love of his life, they celebrated exuberantly at the reception alongside family and friends. Mark indulged in a bit too much champagne, though he never allowed himself to get completely inebriated. Jen also had a drink, but it hardly seemed to affect her demeanor. The plan had been simple: leave the reception ahead of everyone else and head to the honeymoon suite to celebrate their union. Since they met 8 months earlier, the couple had mutually agreed to abstain from premarital intimacy, believing it would strengthen their bond. Both admitted to having prior lovers, but they firmly believed waiting would make their relationship more profound and mature. Their restraint hadn't been easy, the passion in their frequent caresses hinted at their longing. Yet, their self-control made their connection feel more meaningful and unshakable. The night took an unexpected turn when Jen, still radiant in her wedding gown, whispered to Mark during a dance that there had been a change of plans. She discreetly handed him a folded note, instructing him to wait 20 minutes before reading it. In her note, Jen outlined her desire to embrace an unconventional start to their marriage. She assured Mark he would understand, and even appreciate, her intentions once he absorbed the full meaning of her proposal. Out of sheer love and unconditional trust, Mark agreed. As their dance concluded, Jen slipped away with Tom Daly, Mark's best friend and the best man. Mark, in the meantime, wandered around, mingling with distant relatives and acquaintances to pass the time. By the time he finally unfolded the note, over 30 minutes had elapsed. The contents of the letter shattered his world. The note read: Mark, my beloved husband. I've been thinking, why not start a new wedding tradition? Since we'll have 2 weeks on a secluded beach and the rest of our lives together, I believe the wedding night should be spent uniquely. I feel the bride should make love to the best man, showcasing why he was chosen for the role, while the groom does the same with the maid of honor. This way, our closest friends become even more bonded to us as we embark on this lifelong journey. By the time you read this, Tom and I will have already begun our celebration, so altering the plan will be impossible. Tom also plans to maintain a close relationship with me after the honeymoon. He's already taken the apartment next to ours. Thus, your best friend will also be my second lover, after you, of course. Please don't disturb us. Instead, call Anne, she's eagerly awaiting your company. Take her to the bridal suite and ensure she feels equally special. I'll see you in the morning before heading to the airport. Love always. Jen. Mark sat motionless, grappling with shock and betrayal. His trust in Jen had been exploited. She'd ensured he wouldn't interfere by insisting he delay reading the note. By the time he could process the situation and locate them, it would be far too late to intervene. Determined to salvage some dignity, Mark called Anne, the maid of honor, only to discover a new twist. Anne revealed her long-standing relationship with her girlfriend, June, and admitted she had pleaded with Jen to abandon her outrageous plan. Jen, however, had been relentless in her schemes. To Mark's dismay, Anne also confessed that Jen's bachelorette party had been a celebration of her continuing relationship with Anne, and Jen had been involved with Tom throughout their engagement. The night, already unbearable, plunged further into chaos. Mark resolved to make plans, firm, decisive plans for his next steps. He spent the rest of the night crafting a strategy. The morning arrived with Jen appearing in the breakfast room, still adorned in her wedding dress. Despite the radiant garment, her demeanor was anything but joyful. She seemed annoyed, her focus solely on her husband. Why can't I go to my room and change so we can leave? This dress wasn't meant to be worn for 2 days, she demanded, her words devoid of affection or remorse. Mark, steady in his resolve, gestured for her to sit. Why don't you take a seat? Mark gestured for Jen to take the chair across from him. With a slight sigh, she complied, sitting down reluctantly, while Tom slid into the seat next to her, immediately taking her hand. Observing this, Mark remarked with a cold edge, "The reason you can't get into the room is that I checked us out of the hotel at 3 a.m. I had all the luggage sent to the airport, checked in, and ready for our flight. It's all waiting to be loaded onto the plane and will arrive at our honeymoon destination." He paused, giving her a moment to process what he'd said. Jen muttered, "How thoughtful of you, darling. But you seem to have forgotten that I needed to change this morning before meeting everyone. This dress isn't exactly suitable for a long flight." Mark smirked. "Perhaps I acted too quickly. But, you see, I was left alone last night on my wedding night, with no one to keep me company. So, I decided to start our marriage with a fresh slate." Jen flinched slightly at his mention of loneliness but tried to counter, "Didn't you call Anne? She was supposed to come to our room and keep you company." "Oh, I did," Mark replied dryly. "But it seems Anne, being an out-and-proud lesbian, wasn't keen on spending the night with a hairy man, as she put it. Her girlfriend June wasn't too thrilled about the idea either." Jen frowned, confused. "I'll have to speak with her. She promised me she'd do the right thing." Mark chuckled, a laugh devoid of warmth. "She did the right thing. She told me about your affair with her, your ongoing fling with my best friend Tom, and how you'd convinced me to remain celibate, all the while having your fun. And wasn't on board with your plan to humiliate me, but she thought you were joking when you shared it with her. Turns out, she was wrong." "No, no," Jen protested. "That's not true. She agreed to it. She even said she liked the idea sometimes and was willing to go along with it for me." Just then, Anne, who had been sitting nearby, stood and interjected, "You lying, manipulative little snake. You wanted to have it all, a good man in complete control. You've ruined him, destroyed his friendship with Tom, and made a fool of yourself in the process. For the record, I never agreed to anything involving Mark. And, by the way, while you're off on your honeymoon, June will be moving in with me. Don't even think about asking for my help when this all falls apart." And turned and left, with June following behind. They didn't bother to stick around for what they knew was coming next. Jen, visibly shaken, turned back to Mark, desperation in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you," she pleaded. "I just wanted to create something new and exciting, a tradition to bring us closer, along with our friends. I thought it would make our bond stronger." Mark's expression hardened as he scanned the room, taking in the disapproving faces of her family and his own. Even those closest to her looked disgusted. Tom, seated beside her, seemed to realize the gravity of the situation, his face paling as he spotted Mark's brothers and cousins moving towards the exit. Mark leaned forward, his tone icy. "Tom, my old friend, thank you for helping me see what a disaster I married. I should be grateful, but strangely, I feel more like punching you in the face." "Don't worry, I won't. Not today. But don't think I'll forget." Tom's relief was short-lived as Mark continued, "I also called Mr. Jameson this morning and explained the situation. Turns out, he's more conservative than we thought. Come Monday, he'll be firing you, publicly. I hope you weren't counting on your new apartment. Without a job, you'll probably lose that, too." Mark paused, letting the words sink in. "By the way, goodbye. My brothers and cousins would like to have a word with you outside." Tom bolted, likely trying to escape the impending confrontation. Whether he succeeded or not, Mark couldn't care less. He turned back to Jen. "I assume he wasn't planning to tag along on our honeymoon. Given the circumstances, I don't think he can afford it." Jen, now pale as a ghost, stammered, I didn't mean." Mark cut her off, his voice dripping with disdain. "Don't even bother. I assume you're expecting a divorce. Sorry to disappoint you, I'm not giving you the satisfaction. We don't have a prenup, but I don't intend to share anything with someone like you. I spoke with your father this morning. He's agreed to represent me in filing for an annulment since the marriage wasn't consummated. He'll handle everything on Monday. He stood, his final words like a dagger. As for the honeymoon tickets, I've given them to my parents. They'll finally get the vacation they deserve. And don't bother trying to contact me, I'm done. You'll need to find somewhere else to stay. Even your own family doesn't want you. With that, Mark and his family walked out, leaving Jen alone in the room. Someone spat at her on the way out, but she hardly noticed, too consumed by her tears and disbelief at how her plans had crumbled so completely.